everybody. It is Friday, May 12th, and you're listening to the Mo News Podcast. I'm Jill Wagner. This is the place where we bring you just the facts. We read all of the news and read between the lines so you don't have to. TGIF, everybody. It has been a week, or maybe it's just me. Thanks for hanging in there with me while Moshe's overseas. We have got another news-packed podcast coming up, including a report from Mosheh, who happens to be in Israel on the latest round of fighting in the area. And then later in the show, I'm going to be joined by Dana Pollack, the CEO and founder of Dana's Bakery and author of the cookbook by the same name. It's also Mother's Day on Sunday, so we'll be getting some of her tips for everyone who is hosting and a whole lot more. And we've got some last-minute gift ideas. But let's get to the news. Backlash for CNN over its town hall with Donald Trump on Wednesday night, how the network's defending its decision to host the former president. Charges expected in the chokehold killing of Jordan Neely on the Manhattan subway. As I mentioned, Mosheh has a report from Tel Aviv on the latest violence in the Middle East. An update on debt ceiling negotiations. A meeting that was scheduled for today has been delayed. Why that's not necessarily a bad thing. Twitter has a new mystery CEO. The next time you go to the Wendy's drive-thru, it may not be a person who's taking your order. Is it a cold, COVID, or allergies? Well, this year there's a good chance it's allergies. Why allergy season is getting longer. And Dolly Parton's out with a rock album, and she is collaborating with some of the biggest names in music. Tell me everything. Plus, we've got On This Day in History, and it is Friday. We'll take a look at what we are watching, reading, and eating this weekend. Dana will be weighing in on the latest cottage cheese craze. All right, let's start with the big media and political story. The backlash continues for CNN over its fiery town hall with Donald Trump on Wednesday night, in which he continued to say that the 2020 election was stolen from him, mocked E. Jean Carroll, who a jury just found was abused and defamed by Trump back in the 1990s. He wouldn't say if he sides with Ukraine over Russia in the war. And at one point, he called the moderator, Caitlin Collins, a nasty person when she asked him about the classified documents scandal. Take a listen.
Are you ready? Can I talk?
Yeah, what's the answer?
Do you mind?
I would like for you to answer the question.
Okay, it's very simple to answer.
That's why I asked it.
It's very simple you're a nasty person, I'll tell you.
So as you heard there, the audience, which was made up of Republican and undecided voters, seemed to be loving every minute of it, clapping and even laughing as he mocked Carroll and insulted the host who was trying to fact-check him in real time. Some of the criticism on Thursday from Bill Carter, former New York Times media reporter. He wrote on Twitter, "This thing was madness, total madness, like giving a microphone to drunk uncle and saying, go for it." Writer James Fallows tweeted, "This is CNN's lowest moment as an organization." Even CNN's own media critic, Oliver Darcy, wrote on Thursday, "It is hard to see how America was served by the spectacle of lies that aired on CNN Wednesday evening." We at Mo News heard from a ton of people in the Mo News community who felt the same way. We did also hear, though, from some who thought that CNN made the right decision. The network's new CEO, Chris Licht, defending the decision to broadcast the live town hall. On a call Thursday morning with CNN staff, he says he is aware of the backlash, but there is so much that was learned about what another Trump presidency looked like. Licht said that while we all may have been uncomfortable hearing people clapping, that it was also an important part of the story because the people in that audience represent a large swath of America. Licht said that the mistake the media made in the past was ignoring that those people exist, just like you cannot ignore that President Trump exists. He said, "We all know covering Donald Trump is messy and tricky, and it will continue to be messy and tricky, but it's our job." Now, that is according to a transcript of the call obtained by the New York Times. According to Nielsen, by the way, that town hall was watched by 3.1 million people, more than 3 times what CNN typically gets during that hour, but it is still way below previous election cycles. One of the questions that we got on the Instagram account, why was the audience only made up of Republican and undecided voters? The reason for that is because he's currently running in that Republican primary, so it makes sense to have the people who could potentially vote for him be in the audience. CNN, meanwhile, said it picked who would be in that audience the same way that it has done for past forums with candidates. A network team had traveled to New Hampshire where the town hall took place and then coordinated with local organizations to find people that they thought represented the voters. Regardless of what you think of Trump or CNN's decision, buckle up because this was a preview of what we can expect from this next election cycle in which Trump is currently the Republican frontrunner. Okay, now to an update on the subway chokehold death of Jordan Neely. From the New York Times, Daniel Penny, the 24-year-old Marine veteran who choked and killed Jordan Neely on the Manhattan subway last week, will be charged with manslaughter in the second degree. He is expected to turn himself into a Manhattan criminal court this morning. As for that charge, a person is charged with manslaughter in the second degree when they recklessly cause the death of another person. As a refresher on this story, Penny encountered Neely on an F train on May 1st. Witnesses told police that Neely had been shouting at passengers, threatening them, and saying that he didn't care if he went to jail. He didn't get physically violent, though, but that is when Penny placed him in a chokehold for about 15 minutes, killing him. Penny's attorneys have previously said that their client was protecting himself and others and never intended to harm Neely. Sources telling NBC New York that the decision to charge Penny was made by the DA's office in consultation with the NYPD. Now, it's still not clear if the DA, Alvin Bragg, intends to pursue charges against the other two people who were seen restraining Neely while Penny had him in the chokehold. There have been protests in New York since that incident demanding that Penny be charged. This is certainly a controversial one. Neely is a homeless man with a lengthy criminal record and a history of mental illness. And I was reading some of the comments on the Instagram post about the charges on the Mo News account. Some people saying Penny overreacted. They're glad that he is being held accountable. Others, though, are defending the Marine veteran. They say that he was protecting his fellow passengers and pointing to the fact that Neely had 42 prior arrests, which include assault, and that things could have escalated very quickly. By the way, some of those arrests, though, were also for lower offenses like carrying open alcohol in public. Certainly a story that we'll be following here on the podcast and on the Instagram account. All right, time now for the speed read. Let's start overseas with the latest round of fighting between Israel and Palestinian Islamic Jihad in the Gaza Strip. More calls for a truce from the international community, but at least as of this recording late Thursday night, the violence seems to be escalating, potentially making a ceasefire harder to reach. Heavy rocket fire from Gaza has now caused the first Israeli death in this latest round of fighting. Palestinian officials say 29 Palestinians have been killed and more than 90 injured in Israeli air raids on the Gaza Strip since Tuesday. Mosheh is in Tel Aviv right now on a reporting trip amid this escalating conflict, and he filed this report late Thursday from Tel Aviv.
Hey, Jill, I am wrapping up my trip to Ethiopia and Israel, where I happen to be covering the Ethiopian Jews who are immigrating to Israel. But upon landing in Israel, I happen to be arriving as we are seeing the worst round of violence and fighting between Israel and the Palestinian Islamic Jihad terrorist group in Gaza, which began just pre my arrival, and we're now heading into its fourth day as I record this in Tel Aviv. Those of you watching on YouTube, you can see behind me is the Tel Aviv beach, and then behind that, Yaffo. I'm about 40 miles north of the Israel-Gaza border, just to give you context. The entire country here between the Palestinian territories and Israel is about the size of New Jersey. So everything is pretty close. Even so, though, in Tel Aviv, about 40 miles north, it feels very different from what's going on at the border. So let me give you a sense of what's happening here. Again, I'm in Tel Aviv, Israel's largest city. So here's the state of play as I record this on Thursday evening in Tel Aviv, where right now the count is more than 500 missiles and rockets have been shot from the Gaza Strip. They, of course, have the intention, Islamic Jihad does, of hitting civilians here on the Israeli side of the border. Notably, Israel's air defense system, including one that it's called the Iron Dome, its anti-missile system, has been 96% successful, according to authorities here, meaning 96% of the rockets, of those rockets that have made it across the border, have been intercepted. There has been some damage, and I'll get to that in a second. Life here is very different than what's happening at the border. Israelis close to the border, within a few miles there, within about 10 miles of the border, are living their lives within 15 to 30 seconds of a bunker. And so that means schools are happening close to bunkers. Things are canceled down there close to the border of the Palestinian territory and Israel. Meanwhile, up here, about 40 miles north, life proceeds as normal. We have typically between 90 seconds to 2 minutes to get to a bunker if the sirens go off. Right now, it appears the rockets that are being shot off are all short-range rockets that don't quite make it here, though there have been sirens here in the past 48 hours. But let's back up here for those of you who have not been following the story. This latest round of fighting, a war becoming hot again, was touched off last week when the leader of the Palestinian Islamic Jihad group died in an Israeli prison. His name was Qadir Adnan. He went on a food strike, self-initiated food strike, for 87 days and died. Now, food strikes, hunger strikes, are a very common thing that have been seen in Israeli prisons in recent years among Palestinian political prisoners. By international law, authorities are not allowed to force feed prisoners, but typically they'll end their food strikes as they become very weak. In this case, Adnan went all the way here and is the first death from a hunger strike that this country has seen in nearly 3 decades. In the aftermath of Adnan's death in prison, Palestinian Islamic Jihad vowed revenge and began launching missiles from the Gaza Strip territory. Israel then responded by assassinating multiple Islamic Jihad leaders in strategic strikes, beginning over the course of the past few days. That's included a strike earlier this week that took out a couple senior members of that militant group and their families. They happen to be next to their families at that moment. The latest Israeli airstrikes in the Gaza Strip killed 2 Islamic Jihad commanders on Thursday, including the head of the missile unit that's been directing the missile launches into Israel. Right now, the death toll in the Palestinian territory has rose above 24. Most of them are fighters, but there have been a handful of civilians killed, as I mentioned, the wives and children of those militant commanders, as well as several deaths that have been attributed, and there are several more. The question is, what are they attributed to? More than 100 of the 500 rockets that have been launched from the territory have misfired and fallen back on the Gaza Strip. So authorities here say that several of the civilian deaths are due to misfires from the Islamic Jihad group. Right now, 1 in 4 of all rockets launched from Gaza are misfiring and falling back on their own territory. Keep in mind, many of these rockets cost between $300 and $700 to be made and are not very advanced. So that's the death toll right now on the Palestinian side as that escalates. Meanwhile, on the Israeli side, there have been a number of physical injuries from people running to shelters, and then a lot of trauma and mental health, including from children who are living in the shelters, dealing with the fear of an imminent attack. Of course, the mental health toll, certainly an issue on the Palestinian side of the fighting as well. Right now, there are multiple international efforts to stop the fighting, to broker a ceasefire. The Egyptians, the Americans, Qatar are all involved in trying to broker a ceasefire here. There are a few demands being made on the Palestinian side. Islamic Jihad, the group, wants the return of the body of the hunger striker from an Israeli prison. They also want Israel to promise to stop assassinating leaders from the group. And they also want Israel to cancel celebrations next week around the holiday of Jerusalem Day, which typically is marked in the city of Jerusalem. So those are the demands on the Islamic Jihad side. Israel, of course, has one demand, which is stop shooting rockets onto the Israeli side of the border. So we'll see in the coming hours and days if they're able to strike that accord. The Israelis have had some victories here on their end by taking out a number of these commanders in this fighting. Of course, the Iron Dome system also been very successful this time. Islamic Jihad, to the experts that I talked to, is looking to have some sort of victory with these rocket launches. So far, they haven't seen it. So they want something to be able to declare victory with, and that is always what concerns the Israeli side here. As I continue to record this, there have been 4 rockets fired in just the past 3 minutes, not anywhere near where I am in Tel Aviv, but about 25 miles south of here. So that's the situation here right now. People can follow my continuing coverage over on the Instagram account as well as the Mo News Premium Instagram account. I now have 2 new apps on my phone that send alerts when a missile is incoming. They're similar to weather apps, just something else to be worried from the sky. Most Israelis have these apps. They geolocate where you are and will send you a note if a missile is headed your way. And again, we'll also tell you how long you should be away from a bunker. Right now where I'm sitting, it says I have 2 minutes to get to a bunker should a missile siren go off. So we're all alert to it, but it's really remarkable. Jill, was out to lunch today with friends. People continue to live their lives, at least where I am. Again, just 40 miles from the fighting. And a question I've been getting a lot on Instagram, and I'll just end with this. People are like, do you feel safe And I compare it to really living in the US and being concerned about a mass shooting. Like, you don't stop living your life. You go to the grocery store, you go to the shopping mall, etc. You just become more hyper aware of your surroundings. And that's the case over here. I know, it feels different, but really, to me, it feels the same living in New York City, being concerned about something happening on the subway or a mass shooting of sorts. It's something that is in the back of your mind, sometimes more in the front of your mind, but you continue to live your life. Those of you, again, watching on YouTube, you see people on the beach behind me. That's where they're living their life. If a siren went off, they'll try to run off the beach into a shelter or a building that's located just off the beach. So that's it for now from here in Tel Aviv. I'll be back in the U.S. This weekend and back on the podcast daily next week. Looking forward to being back, Jill.
All right, Mosh, thank you for that report. Stay safe over there. Mosh had to go into a bomb shelter at one point on Thursday. He and everybody that he was with were okay, but he documented that experience on the Instagram account. And it was a fascinating look at what life is like on the ground. All right, a quick update now to the debt ceiling drama from CNBC. The debt ceiling meeting slated for today between President Biden and top congressional leaders has been postponed until early next week. Biden was set to sit down with House Speaker McCarthy, Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell, Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, and House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, the Big Four, as they are called. Well, the leaders left their meeting on Tuesday with little progress to show. But a source tells NBC News that this delay is actually a positive development, saying, quote, meetings are progressing, staff is continuing to meet, and it just wasn't the right moment to bring it back to principles. From The Verge, Twitter has a new mystery CEO. Elon Musk announced plans for a new Twitter CEO, but hasn't said who it is. In a tweet on Thursday, Musk said that, quote, she will be starting in about 6 weeks. Musk will instead assume the role of executive chair and chief technology officer, overseeing product and software. Now, according to Puck News, the new CEO will be NBC Universal advertising executive Linda Yasserino. You might remember Musk put out a poll in December asking followers if he should, quote, step down as head of Twitter, and he promised that he would abide by the wishes of the crowd. The majority said yes. All right, before we get to our next story in the speed read, I want to bring in our guest today, Dana Pollack. She is the CEO and founder of... Hi, Dana. She is the CEO and founder of Dana's Bakery, which was pretty much the OG of online direct-to-consumer bakeries. They specialize in gluten-free desserts that are amazing. Dana, so glad to have you on.
Thank you, Jill. So good to be here. Hello, everybody.
And admittedly, Dana is a friend of mine outside of this podcast. I just want to mention it, just full disclosure, Dana. I believe in total honesty here. But a lot of stories, though, that I wanted you to weigh in on as a business owner, a mom, and of course, a professionally trained chef. The list goes on.
Thank you, Jill. I'm pumped to be here and excited to dive right in.
Okay, this story from Fortune magazine. Wendy's will begin testing an artificial intelligence-powered chatbot next month that will talk to customers and take drive-thru orders. The company says the system, which is powered by Google Cloud's AI software, will be as natural as talking to an employee and has the ability to understand speech and answer frequently asked questions. Wendy's is one of several restaurants incorporating AI and automation to improve customer service while also grappling with labor shortages. And drive-thrus have surged in popularity during the pandemic, with the chain saying 80% of its customers prefer ordering that way. The CEO says that this creates a huge opportunity for them to deliver a truly differentiated, faster, and frictionless experience for their customers. The chatbot, by the way, is going to have a female voice and will be able to understand requested items that aren't phrased exactly how they might appear on the menu. So, for example, it will know that a large milkshake is actually the chain's large Frosty. All right, Dana, I'd love to get your take on this because Mosheh and I have been talking a lot about AI and ChatGPT and how it's going to change so many industries. So as a business owner, you have dozens of employees. Do you envision using AI in any capacity?
So customer service is one of the most important roles for any service business. It's the first person that your customer is engaging with in any business. So I feel like this is a really big risk, having a robot be so
Right.
like literally having a robot be so hands-on with your customers. But if it works, the risk is definitely worth the reward, because I know that your number one expense in any business, especially a small business, is your labor. And if you have a machine, a robot doing all of this, it's a one-time investment that just pays for itself over time. So my mind's a little bit blown, and I'm really curious to see how it goes. And if anything, like if all else fails and the robot is a total flop, it's still a great sales tactic, because even if you don't eat fast food, you are going to that drive-thru just for the experience.
To see if you could trip it up.
Just to see, like, what does it look like? What's the, like, how does it go down? What does she sound like? I just want to know. I have so many questions.
Interesting that they picked a woman for the voice.
I was going to say that. My question for the CEO of Wendy's is, why a woman's voice? Maybe it's just so comforting and reassuring. I'm not sure, but I'm here for it. And I'm also curious what that training process was like. How did they set up this robot so that it knows everything, the ins and outs, and it's going to be smooth? I mean, I know that it's a whole process, but my mind is truly blown. And I'm curious what that training, that onboarding process is for that AI robot. I'm hoping that they document it at some point so that we do kind of see the inner workings, because it is so interesting.
For Maxios, allergy season has been lengthened by about 15 days on average between the years 1970 and 2021 in about 200 cities across the United States. This is according to Climate Central, a nonprofit climate news organization. And this is based on the number of days between the last freeze in each spring and the first freeze each fall, which is essentially the window where allergy sufferers really feel it. So that longer window means that plants have more time to flower and release pollen, which is what causes allergies. According to Climate Central, the longer allergy season is tied, of course, to climate change. According to the study, from 1990 to 2018, pollen counts increased by about 21% nationwide. The greatest increases were in the Midwest and Texas. Some cities are really impacted, like Reno, Nevada. Allergy season is now 99 days longer than it was in 1970.
Oh my God.
Of note, allergy seasons are actually shorter in a handful of cities like Denver and Charlotte. Dana, I'm kind of always on patrol for people who are sick, and I try to stay away from them. And this year, I feel like everyone was sneezing, and everyone who was sneezing would turn around and be like, it's not COVID, I'm not sick, it's allergies. And of course, I would never believe them, but maybe I should have.
Maybe they were onto something. Maybe they knew before the news broke that allergy season is the new pumpkin spice latte, and it is just starting earlier and earlier. It's one of these things where don't they say that you have to start taking your allergy meds, like your Claritin or your Zyrtec, a couple of weeks before the season officially starts? If that's the case, when are we supposed to be starting? Because my car has been covered with green pollen for weeks now, and I've truly been suffering since I moved out to the burbs. And I'd love to get a handle on it because, I suffer. It's new for me, and I don't like it one bit.
From Good Morning America, Dolly Parton announced that her upcoming album, Rockstar, will be released later this year on November 17th. It is her first rock and roll album. It includes 9 original tracks and 21 iconic rock anthems. Appearing on the album with her, Miley Cyrus, Chris Stapleton, Pink, Brandi Carlile, Elton John, Paul McCartney, Ringo Starr, and Lizzo, and the list goes on. So Dolly Parton hosted the Country Music Awards last night with Garth Brooks, and she also premiered the first song on that new album, World on Fire.
I love Dolly. Dolly can do no wrong. And I feel like Dolly's kind of like the Benjamin Button of performing artists. She started in country and now she's going into rock. Most people start in rock or some other genre, and then they end up going country. And I just love her. She does so much for everyone else. She donates money. She has all these amazing charities. And did you see her on the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame rocking out with all those people on stage, including Rob Halford from Judas Priest? Did you see it?
I did not.
You didn't see it? Well, I will send you a clip. The leather looks good on her. You know what I'm saying? She fits the mold. She can pull anything off.
I love that
Dolly is timeless.
She's totally the Benjamin Button of music. Really quick, favorite Dolly song?
Jolene, hands down.
Totally.
I've got my daughters and my niece trained on it. We belted in the car. Jolene, for sure.
Okay, time for On This Day in History. On May 12th, 2008, a magnitude 8.0 earthquake struck beneath a mountainous region in south-central China. Buildings toppled and 70,000 people were killed, including thousands of children. And sticking with China, tomorrow, May 13th, 1989, approximately 2,000 students began a hunger strike in Tiananmen Square. Now onto some pop culture. On this day in 1994, Quentin Tarantino's Pulp Fiction premiered at the Cannes Film Festival.
Great soundtrack.
Dana, that soundtrack, I feel like it was the soundtrack of my youth in a way.
It is such a great soundtrack, and I will forever be doing those hand motions.
Totally.
With the hands over the eyes and the little dance.
The Uma Thurman dance, totally.
Yes, so good.
And on this day in 2004, model actress Allie Landry filed for an annulment to her marriage to actor Mario Lopez from Saved by the Bell because of infidelity. Dana, less than 2 weeks after getting married. This is not what we would normally cover in this section. But I was doing
AC Slater.
I know. I was doing research for it, and I just thought, what? I never knew this. Those dimples had me fooled.
Is anything sacred anymore? I mean, if he could fool us with those dimples, I don't know. I don't feel safe.
Okay, it is Friday. Cheers to the freaking weekend. Time for what we are watching, reading, and eating this weekend. I'll kick it off. I'm going to be watching The Fabelmans. That is the semi-autobiographical story based on Steven Spielberg's life. I wanted to see it in the theater, but I just didn't get around to it. And now it's out on Showtime, so I can't wait. What about you, Dana?
So when the Knicks are not playing in the playoffs, because that is the top priority of our household right now. We actually started watching this show called Poker Face. It's a Peacock original. I've only one episode in. Okay. So I heard it's really good. The first episode was awesome. I'm like, let me tell you all about the first episode. It takes place in Vegas. Natasha Lyonne is in it. Adrian Brody. There's a bunch of other people that apparently come in, like Chloe Sevigny. Cool cast. But there's suspense, drama. It's funny. And so far, so good. So that's what I'm currently watching.
All right. As for what we are reading, I'm going to be reading a profile of Elizabeth Holmes that was in the New York Times. She was the founder of Theranos and is supposed to go to prison soon for a slew of financial crimes and defrauding investors. The piece is called Liz Holmes Wants You to Forget About Elizabeth. The black turtlenecks are gone. So is the voice, apparently. As the convicted Theranos founder awaits prison, she's adopted a new persona, devoted mother. So this piece has gotten a ton of criticism for basically being PR for Holmes.
So opposites attract, and this might be one of the reasons why I love you. Your book selection looks a lot different than mine. My library is about 10% self-help and business books, and the other 90% are smutty romance novels. And I am like a proud patron of Audible. So I'm currently ping-ponging between Atomic Habits by James Clear. It's all about creating habits that will just set you up for success in your future, because who doesn't love that? And then my smutty romance fun read is From Lou Cove with Love by Mariana Zapata. And I have to tell you, I'm struggling a little bit. It's pretty awful. I somehow ended up on the side of Book Talk because it was like the hockey playoffs. So I have all of these book recommendations of hockey and ice romances, and I tried it, and let's just say I think it's going to be a fail. But those are the two that I'm reading right now.
You have a book club, right?
I do. I crush about 3 books a week, and I post all of them on my personal Instagram, which is the business Instagram is all of the baking and the Dana's Bakery stuff. But my personal Instagram is all of the book club, the food, the kids, the family life, and what's more family life than smutty romance novels? And it's all on there.
Okay, now to what we are eating. I'm going to be eating anything you tell me to eat. So what is on the menu for you this weekend, Dana?
So I don't know if you guys know about this cottage cheese craze that has just taken over social media, but everything seems to be made out of cottage cheese. So of course I need to try it all. And I'm now saying officially, you heard it here first, cottage cheese is the new kale. Kale was everything a couple of years ago, and now it's cottage cheese. So the other day I made a high protein. You know why everyone likes cottage cheese? Because it's high protein, right? It's like,
so that's the draw.
That's the draw.
Got it.
So I'm always trying to sneak protein into my diets, my kids' diet, because they, as much as I cook and I make a lot of food, we have a garden in the backyard. They're like chicken nuggets, pizza, pasta, which essentially does have some protein in it. But if I can make them ice cream that has 21 grams of protein in a serving, I'm eating it, and then they're going to want to eat what I eat. So I made ice cream out of cottage cheese. Wait, what was the thing that I just made? Oh, I made pasta with a pink sauce, and the pink sauce was made with cottage cheese instead of heavy cream. It was actually really good, and my kids devoured it. I've posted them all on my personal Instagram, and if you want to check it out, @It's Dana Pollack. A little redundant.
Oh, you're one of those.
It's Dana Pollack. It was Dana Pollack was taken. What am I going to do? Desperate times call for desperate measures, but it works.
And it is Mother's Day, of course, on Sunday. I follow you on Instagram where you're always entertaining. You make it look so easy. I know you're a trained chef, but for the rest of us, any tips or tricks if we're hosting this weekend, as I am?
First of all, we should not be hosting, but I am too. So with that being said, I treat Mother's Day when I'm hosting like Thanksgiving. I do as much that I can the day before, because the day of, you just don't want to be bothered with setting the table, food prep, any of that stuff. So that would be my number one thing. Any food, anything you can make ahead of time, just do it the day before. And then everyone's always going to ask you, what can I bring? And most of the time, we're like, nothing, I've got it covered. But on Mother's Day, assuming that it's like family or friends that are coming over, tell them what you need. I always I ask my sister-in-law, Jen, hi Jen, to bring a crudité, because although I know how to cut vegetables and I can make a nice one, it's busy work and it's super labor intensive. So it's just easier if someone brings it to my house. So that would be my pointer.
I think that that's great advice, actually, not just for Mother's Day. I think in general, if you're hosting and people say, what can I bring? Tell them. I know, because I'm usually a guest. Right. I just moved to this house, so I'm new to the hosting game. And when I am a guest, I actually do want to be told what to bring, because or else I usually just grab a dessert. That's fine.
If it's dessert, that's fine. But I mean, I'm not going to make wine. I have enough wine. I don't need you to bring me wine. And although I appreciate it, it's probably not a wine that I want to drink. But anything that you can do that's going to make my life hosting a little bit easier, I'm going to jump on that. So it's on you if you don't tell the people what you need, because 9 times out of 10, they really do want to help you, and they'll step up.
Great advice. And Dana, for Teacher Appreciation Week, I included some gift recommendations that teachers had actually asked for, and I got a lot of good feedback on it. So this Mother's Day, what do you got in the way of gift recommendations?
So gift certificates are going to be the obvious, and they're also the easiest to do. But I think the key to making it successful is getting a gift certificate for something that that she loves or her hobby. So if she likes to get a massage or she wants to get her nails done, get the gift certificate from a place that she actually frequents. If she has a hobby like axe throwing or going to see the theater, whatever it is, get her a gift certificate there. I love a good gift certificate as long as it is done correctly and it's, for a place that I would be going.
Do you like getting flowers?
I feel like Miley Cyrus when I'm going to say that I buy myself flowers. I love tulips. So I'm always just buying them and putting them in the house. I like them if it's the right type of flower. I don't really like stinky flowers. So if it's not a tulip or it's something that's super stinky, I say that I like it, but I don't really love it. I would much rather a gift certificate or a dessert. I'm a big dessert person. I love the sweets, if you didn't notice.
I'm kind of meh on flowers, which is why I asked you, because I love them and I love having flowers in my house and it puts me in the best mood. But then that day 6 or 7 and they start to die and get
They
smelly.
stink.
It's work. You're kind of like, what do I even do with these?
Right.
Or is that just
and
me?
You know what no, it's not you, but you know what flowers I love the most? Flowers that come not on Mother's Day, my birthday, or after a theoretical fight. I love just because flowers, because that is when the flower means the most to me. When I'm not buying it for myself. Self-love all the time. But if it's coming from my husband, or like just in general, I think that women really, or people really appreciate flowers just because. That's my favorite flower.
All right, Adam, I hope you were listening. Adam is Dana's husband. Great advice. And happy Mother's Day to all the moms, the mother figures out there. Dana, you and I are both moms. I like to say it is the hardest and best job in the world.
It is, you are correct. It is the most challenging yet rewarding job on the planet.
Okay, you have me beat.
And I wouldn't trade it for anything else.
All right. By the way, Mosheh and I put together a special Mother's Day edition of this podcast. It's going to be out later today. We interviewed our moms. Tons of fun. Dana, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. Where can people find you outside of this episode?
You can find the bakery at danasbakery.com. We ship nationwide. And then if you want to follow our social channels, Dana's Bakery is the business account, and my personal account where I do all the fun stuff and all of the baking, the cooking, is at It's Dana Pollack. Don't forget the
All right, a
it's.
big thank you to everyone for listening to the Mo News podcast. Follow us and subscribe so you don't miss an episode. Review us in the App Store so we can continue to grow. Call us, 1-800-711-MOSH, M-O-S-H, and follow us on Instagram at Mosh, M-O-S-H-E-H. Guys, thanks for sticking with me this week. We've had fun. There's been so much news. Mosh will be back, though, on Monday. And again, happy Mother's Day to everyone out there. Have a good weekend.